Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Central Florida Computer Society, the Windows Special Interest Group, or WinSIG, for Sunday, May 13th, 2018. My name is Hewie Poplock. I am the leader of this little group, and we are sitting in our bedroom in Bradenton, Florida, and broadcasting to the Central Florida Computer Society meeting in Castleberry, Florida, at the library there in Castleberry, along with some guests online. We do open it up to anyone who wants to join, but user group members from around the country and around the world are welcome to join, as well as your friends and neighbors are welcome to join as well. We've got 9 or 10 people in the audience in Castleberry, and we've got almost that many online. So hopefully we'll get some more to join us as we go along, and we'll get more watching the video that will be available shortly after the meeting. So let's minimize this and go right to the Hewie's Views and Reviews, where I maintain all of the meeting notes from the meetings, actually going back to 2008, about 10 years now. And we've been doing this SIG for a lot longer, but we haven't had it online except for the last 10 years. And the last few years, we've been, since we've been over here in Bradenton, about 3 years now, a little over 3 years, we also record the meetings that we do live and post them on the website. You'll also notice on the right-hand side the WinSIG newsletter sign-up. That's on each page of my website. If you go to hewie.net, any of the pages you go to, please fill that in if you're not on the list. And about once a month, I send you a list of the meeting notes from the previous month. And I usually send it out a couple of days or a day or two before the meeting with my notes from the meeting that we're about to happen. And I also post an article. I hope you read the article. It's not my best writing because I needed to get it done and get it out, and I wanted to get it in this newsletter. It is on the website. So if you just go to the home page, you'll see that it begins there. If you click here, it will take you to the article. And there are some pictures or screen captures of a couple of things as well. And it's a fairly lengthy article with some links in it. And I'm going to cover some of what happened when I went to do the update to the April 2018 of Windows 10. And this kind of summarizes it. So please make sure you take a look at it and read it, pass it on to your friends, and pay attention to it, because obviously not everyone has been successful in their updates. I'm going to make this larger and then move it towards the center a little bit more. Let's see if I can do that. Now, I think when I do that, it makes it so it's not full screen. So let's do that. Okay. Let's see if I can go one more size bigger. Yes, I can. Okay. Let me tell you a little story that happened to me. I got the notice that on April 30th that the Windows 10 2018 April update was ready, and that if you wanted to download it and install it, you could do it manually, or you could wait till Windows decided it was time. And since I've had everything up to date, I said, well, let me go ahead and do it. I had backed up my hard drive. I have a 240 gigabyte SSD drive as my C drive, and a 1 terabyte physical hard drive as my D drive, and that's where all my data is located. Previously, I had written an article for Hewie's Views and Reviews on my blog that I was running out of space on my C drive. And this has been happening over a period of time. It wasn't a sudden thing. And I had changed all of my defaults. The documents and downloads would automatically go to, we're defaulting to the D drive, and we're no longer on the C drive. And I started to do that with the pictures and the music and the videos, but I had not made the change in the, so I had duplicate named folders on each drive, but not the same items on them, and try to move things over. So I was still down to 8 gigabytes of space on my C drive, and I knew that would not be enough, or probably would not be enough to do the update. So I contacted Glenn at Smart Guys Computers, because they had built my computer, and when it was built 3.5 years ago, it was Windows 8.1, and 8.1. When he installed it, he also installed a recovery partition. So if anything happened, I could go back to square one on that computer with the operating system and recover it automatically. Well, obviously we went from Windows 8.1 to Windows 10, and we'd had many updates to Windows 10. So that partition really was useless, and I certainly didn't want to go back to that. And that had about 40 gigabytes of space. Not all of it was filled, but it was a 40 gigabytes partition. So I checked with Glenn, and he said, yeah, all you have to do is uninstall the program, and that'll free up the space on that partition, and then you should be able to connect it to your main partition and utilize that space. So I attempted to do that, and it worked well. That I was able to uninstall the backup software, or the recovery software, and it freed up that partition. However, when I went in and looked at the partitions, they were not contiguous, and Windows doesn't allow you to merge partitions within Windows if they're not contiguous. And so I went and I purchased Disk Director from the Acronis product from Gene Barlow, and was able to move the partitions around and then made them contiguous, so I could then, I made that drive, it went from 180 to 223 gigabytes, and I now had 40 some odd gigabytes of space free on my C drive. So I was much more comfortable to go into the update. And mind you, I backed up everything. I had everything backed up, all my data, all my C drive, and so on. And so on the 30th, I went ahead and downloaded the entire update. Well, the first thing I did was I tried the update. I tried it probably about 5 times, and each time it ended with an error. It would go through and get to about 98% instead of 100% being complete. It then said error, and then gave me an error message number. Of course, I didn't check that error message number out. I just tried to do a few things, and it didn't work. So what I did is, let's see, let's take a look at the article. I did a search on the number. Let's make this larger. And when I did a search on it, I got this article: potential Windows Update database error detected in Windows 10. And it says, run Windows System File Checker. To run Windows System File Checker, you need to open the command prompt. Actually, before that, it said to run the Troubleshooter. And let me show you how you get to the Troubleshooter. You go to Settings. And when you go to System Update and Security, I'm not going to check for updates, but you'll notice that Troubleshooter is right here. I don't know what it will do while we're online, so I'm not going to run it, but you might want to take a look. And it actually runs a troubleshooting, and then it comes back, and and I've got some pictures of what it looks like, but let's go ahead and close that. I'm trying to think where that was. I think it's in the article. So let's go back to the article. Well, let's open a different window here. And open this article. Anyway, this is what my volumes look like with volume C, and again, they were no longer contiguous even when I had gotten rid of that, and then I merged them, but I still had some issues. So let's see. No, I clicked the wrong window to close, so we'll do that again. Bring this up. Anyway, this is what the Troubleshooter looks like. When you're done, it gives you three things. It tells you potential Windows Update database error detected, check for pending restart, and Windows Update components must be repaired. This is a picture I got from an article. Actually, the second two were checked. It was only the first one where I had a problem, and it said the potential Windows Update database error detected. So that's when I went in with this article. And the first thing it said to do is go into a command prompt, and what we wanted, let's see if I can annotate. No, I want to do it the other way. Annotate, spotlight. Right here, it's not doing the spotlight. There we go. Right here, I had to type in SFC space and then a slash scan now. And when I did it, it scanned the system, and it took a while, but it came back and it showed I had some errors. And anyway, it'll replace all corrupted and damaged Windows operating files. Once the scan is over, you restart your computer. Well, then I tried to do the install. That didn't work. I ran the Troubleshooter. It said it was clear. Then I ran the install again, and I still got errors. So the next item, it says fix Windows 10 download the repair kit. Well, they talked about a VPN service, but that's not what I wanted. Then it says to run something called DISM, and it gives a some command lines to do that with. I tried that, and that didn't work. So I said, well, this article isn't helping me. Let's go to the next article. So I got this article, run DISM to repair Windows system image and Windows component store in Windows 10. And so what you do first is right here, you run DISM online, clean up image, and then scan health. It scans the health, and it actually came up and said it was okay. So now what do I do? That didn't work. So this tells me how to repair it, but it didn't need repairing. The scan health came out good, so I didn't have to go to check health and restore health. But those were some choices. So now I'm still stymied. What do I do next? So I found this article, and let's make it bigger. And obviously it never, the error messages are never the same as what you get and what somebody else is getting, but it did show the potential Windows update on their sample also had an X, but their second one, the components must be repaired. That was not the case with mine, but anyway, I said, well, let me go ahead and continue with this. So I read the article on down, and so it gave me some different solutions. One is perform an SFC scan. And if you remember, that's what I did. And again, each time I tried to install, and I probably tried to install it about 15 times. After I did each of these things, I'd try to install it, and I'd end up back with the errors. I'd have to correct the errors and then have it so all three of those items were green, and I'd try it again and it wouldn't work. And so they also mentioned the DISM, and as I said, that didn't help me. Then it said refresh your PC. And it says, oh, select the app, general, refresh your PC without affecting your files. Now, wait a minute. This means wiping the operating system and reinstalling it, but save your data. And I said, well, I'm not ready for that yet. Okay. Then solution 3 was restart Windows Update Service and rename affected files. So what you do is, this is another working solution to follow the steps. You open the command prompt as an admin. You do all of these net stops. Then you rename some files and then start it back up again. In other words, delete the files, but you're not deleting them. You're just renaming them. And then it'll create new ones. Of course, each time it did that, I lost about 6 gigabytes of space on that drive that was dangerously low at one time, and again was starting to get dangerously low again. And when I finished doing that, I tried the install, and it still didn't work. So it said perform a clean boot. So I did that. Went into MS Config, and I hid all the Microsoft services and shut everything else down. Stopped everything from running in services. Disable all. And then in the startup, I opened up, now the startup is in Task Manager, so I opened up Task Manager and I disabled everything that needed to be or was not critical. In fact, I think I ended up disabling everything in the startup. So it would be a really clean startup. And move back to the system configuration, applied OK. And then it said, do you want to restart now? And I said, yes, and I restarted. It restarted, it came back up, and I went ahead and said, okay, install. Same, I got an error message again. It would not install the update to Windows 10. So again, they talked about checking your health, and I had already done that. And the final thing in all of this looked like I was probably going to end up having to do a clean install. So I'm going to skip the next one. I'll come back to that. But how to do a clean install. So let's go back in. I know some of you were sitting there and saying, oh my God, why do I have to go through all of this? And I certainly felt that way. So the following guide to help you do a fresh, clean install of Windows 10 on your PC the right way. Now, don't forget, I've been using this machine for 3.5 years. I did have everything backed up. I had it backed up within about 2 weeks, and I had done a few things the night before and saved them on the C drive, and saved most of them on the D drive. So, and the D drive should not get affected by doing this. So I should be okay, unless I really screwed up and started formatting the wrong drive. But even then, I pretty much all of the files I had backed up and had double checked and made sure I had that data, and a lot of the data was stored out on the cloud as well. So how to clean install Windows 10. First and foremost, back up, and I did that. Check your system requirements. So I'm certainly CPU. I certainly have I've got an i3 in there. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Storage space is a little nick and tuck, or nip and tuck, I guess is the phrase. And I do have a graphics card, certainly capable of Windows 10 and handling it. Says the next thing was create a bootable Windows 10 drive. So I went ahead and I clicked on this. I got to Microsoft's website. I created a bootable USB flash drive for Windows 10 1803. In other words, the most current full version. And then boot from the bootable USB drive. Of course, it didn't want to boot right into it. I had to figure out how to get it so I could choose which boot order that I wanted. I told it to boot from the USB, and it did. And it came to this window. And I said, oh, good. At least this part's, we're up to this point, it's working well. Great. So I put the product key in, and because I had done what everyone suggests that I'd run Belarc Advisor, because I had done updates to Windows 10, and I didn't have the key, and I ran Belarc Advisor and had gotten the key and written it down, because it actually did prompt me for it. I put it in. But when I started to run it, it said the next step is to activate it. Well, you know what? I didn't get that far. It said, I can't install this on your computer. Well, I couldn't do a clean install. I couldn't install it. Okay, this is now I got to do some more research. So I started doing some more research, and as I mentioned, let's see if I can come up here. I had a 300 megabyte recovery drive. I had an EFI system partition and a 450 megabyte partition at the end. As you may remember me saying, I took this 30 gigabyte and added it to the main volume. So that's part of the C drive now. So at the end, I had 450 megabytes. At the beginning, I had 300 megabytes, and then a 100 megabyte partition next to it. And I really needed to combine at least the 300 and the 450 in some way, because everything I was reading, it was saying that Windows 10 1803 upgrade requires 500 megabyte recovery folder. And so now I'm in an area, I'm guessing, and I had no idea what I'm supposed to do. I open up Disk Director, and I can unallocate, I can delete partitions, but I can't move that unknown at the end to be next to the recovery to be able to connect them. I deleted the 450 megabytes, made them unallocated, tried to move them, still couldn't. The bottom line was I couldn't make it happen using Disk Director. Now, there might have been a way, and I could have contacted Gene Barlow or Acronis and tried to figure it out. I said, no, this is really getting to be a pain. So I said, I'm going to end up doing it anyway. I'll let Windows handle it all. And I wiped all of the partitions on the C drive, and I had nothing. And I said, now I should be able to do the install. Microsoft is going to see that I got a hard drive there, and it's not allocated, so it's just going to create what it needs to create and go ahead and do it. Well, that was good thinking on my part, but it wasn't the way it happened. I got an error saying all kinds of gibberish on the screen saying, nope, you can't do that. And so at that point, now I've got nothing on C drive, and I'm sitting here at 10 o'clock at night saying, now what do I do? And I wrote in my article, let me find the article that I wrote. Well, let's come back here and just. In this article here, what I wrote was, and slide this over just a little bit. Let's see, will it do that? And I'll make it. You can see it. I can't. Anyway, I got to move something on my screen. You can't see me doing that. But who does the guru go to when he needs help? All my go-to people are those of you sitting in the audience in Castleberry, 120 miles away from me. So I can't just say, Arvin, let's take a look at this. And of course, it was 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but I couldn't connect because I had no C drive. And you couldn't stand in front of it because, as I say, 120 miles away. There's some members of my local group in Sarasota, which is 45-minute drive, but I'm not sure exactly who. I've not used any of those people, so I don't know who's the most knowledgeable about some of these things. But then I thought the Microsoft store. There's one at the University Town Center, which is about half an hour from me, and it's a Microsoft issue. It's not hardware related. All my hardware is working okay. It's the software. So the next morning I got up early. I made an appointment for the next day at the help desk. I forgot what they call it. It's not, I won't use the term that the Apple store uses, but anyway, it's a help desk that they have, or the table. And I took my computer in and took it into the store. Jamin, a very knowledgeable rep, took down all of my info. We talked about it. And basically what he said, you should hear from us in about 48 hours. And before I do that, let me show you a couple of things. Let me move this out of the way. Again, you're not seeing this, but I am. Okay, here's my 25 or 24-inch monitor. Tacked to the back of it is my computer. That's my computer. It's an Intel NUC or NUC. These are two USB ports. Over here is an HDMI and a USB port. It's connected. The screen is a touch screen, so there's a connection from the computer to the screen and also an HDMI connection. And there's also at the bottom down here are some speakers on the monitor as well. So it is basically a very large tab, a 24-inch tablet. And then I use a wireless keyboard and mouse, which I did not take there. And we were doing everything. I didn't need it. They didn't need it. What you see Jamin typing in on is his laptop, where he was taking notes and filling out the forms for me to sign to okay this. But that's my computer. So I told them what the problem was, what I had done, and the following. Let's minimize this. Go back to the article. And then late the next day, another rep by the name of Dean called, said he was the one working on it. He wanted to make sure that there was nothing on that C drive. I had mentioned that. I had also told him that the D drive had all of my data on it, and that I was using the defaults to connect to the D drive. And he said, fine, I will finish this up. Our policy is once I'm done with it, another technician gets on the computer, checks it all out as well. Once it's okay, we'll contact you for to set up an appointment to come pick it up. And then the only thing I would have to do when I picked it up is he did ask me if I had Office 365, and I said I did. He said, we'll install that as well. And then all you'll have to do is sign in and make sure that it recognizes your account, and everything should be fine. With it, we'll make sure that it's working, and then you'll be on your way. And I said, great. So Dean was there when I arrived. I went in. He opened up Office 365. I went ahead and signed in, put in my password. It went out to the internet. It found me. It finished doing a couple of things it needed to do. We were able to open up, get online, because that's where the form was that I needed to sign, saying that I was picking it up. And I had a computer with version 1803 Windows 10 installed. All of my files were still fine on the D drive. The defaults were the download and the documents that were located on the D drive. So he had set all that up for me. And the total cost was zero. Yep, zero, zip, nada, free. They did ask if I wanted to back up, have them back it up, and they would charge $49 to do that in case there were some problems. And I don't know what they did with the backup. They would do with the backup if they did it. I said, I hesitated, and then I said, well, let's do it. Just in case, because if I say no, something is sure to go wrong, obviously. And but they didn't do the backup because they didn't need to. He didn't touch anything on that D drive. There was no problem. And so he didn't charge me the $49 that I even had agreed to. But they didn't do it, so they didn't charge me for it. So this whole thing cost me zero to do. So I know there's a Microsoft store in Orlando. Two of them now? Okay.
Millennium Mall and Florida Mall.
Okay.
And they do call that the Knowledge Desk?
Knowledge Desk. Okay. Yep. I couldn't remember what they called it. Thank you. But it's free. This is part of their service. They don't charge for it. They don't push you to make money on it. In other words, they could have said, well, you agreed to do the backup, and we did the backup, and it's $50. I even said, you know, I think I owe you $50. And he said, no, I didn't do the backup. So you didn't need it. Well, what a great service. I can't speak highly enough of it, of what the guys did and the fact that they got it all done, got it correct. It was... I brought it home, and now I've got a computer that, let's see if I can find the, let's see here, where's that article again? No, I guess I didn't do, well, we can just do it directly from the computer. No, here. And I don't know if you can see, I have 170 gigabytes free on the C drive of 222. I'm down to about 208 free on the of the 1 terabyte. But of that, I know I've got some videos that I don't need anymore. That about 150 gigabytes. They were when I was doing some video work, and all of the videos that I took, I stored on there, and I don't even need to store them. I can just wipe them, and I know it's over 100 gigabytes. And then there are several backups of my Outlook files from a couple of versions of Outlook that each take about 10 gigabytes, close to 10 gigabytes, and I backed them up a couple of different times in different ways, and so I can delete some of them. By the time I finish, I'm going to end up with probably about 350 gigabytes free. In other words, about 2/3 usage of the 1 terabyte drive. Lots of room on the C drive. However, I'm just starting to install some of the software back. I installed a little bit more this morning, enough to be able to do this presentation. So, so we could do this. What's it, about 2:15 now? Okay, so we're doing good. And let's see. Let me go through the rest of the article. So at this point, I've got the fun of installing all the programs I had. I did do, if you remember last month, I talked about a program called Sumo, S-U-M-O, that I demonstrated. and it showed all of the programs I had installed, and it also gave me the version numbers, and it also gave me the updated updates needed, or which ones needed updating. And so I have that list, plus I have all of the Bellarc. So I'm going through and systematically updating and installing, I should say, programs that I had on. And in some cases, I have to download. I didn't have the most recent versions downloaded. I had either installed updates and never downloaded them first, or in some cases, it just hadn't gotten around to updating them yet. So I have to make sure that, but before I download and install them, I'm making sure I have the right keys. A couple of them I had different versions. I had purchased different versions of the same program over years. When they updated to a newer version, from version, let's say 7 to 8, you had to pay for the update and get a different key. And I couldn't find I couldn't find out which keys belonged to which ones on a couple of, and I had to go through a couple of times, and one of them I had to go actually online, go to their website, and it did say, we'll send you your keys. And when I got them, they weren't what I thought they were. I copied and pasted them, put them in my password manager program that I keep track of all those things with anyway. And so I was able to, so I have most of my passwords that not passwords, but the keys for all of the software. And most of them, if I purchase them online, I still have them out on my, let's go here, and then go to my downloads. Notice the downloads are, well, you can't tell. Yeah, they're actually, even though it defaults, it just shows downloads, they're actually all out on the D drive. But you'll notice as I go down here, a good many of these are programs. So I always make a folder for a program that I'm going to install. I put in that folder the version that I download, any text, any documentation that I need to have with it, so that information is in there. So take a program like Malware Washer Pro. There's 7.5, 7.8. You see 215, 216. I don't know if you can see these. They're kind of small on your screen. But also under Mail Washer, 2014. But some programs, let's see if I can find, let's see, Evernote. I don't know how far back I got Evernote. 2005 and 6. But some of them go back 8 or 10 years, the original time I bought them, and then I have updates to them. And I have several versions of the same program. But you can see that I have lots and lots of programs that I've installed. Some of them were giveaway of the day, and you had to install them on within a day or two, or in this case, they're gone. I don't have them anymore. So a lot of those programs won't be installed. There will be some other ones that I need to, well, gee, do I use that program? Did I ever use it? How long ago? If I don't know what it is, that means I don't need it to install it. It's there. If I do later on need to, I've got it. It's just a matter of time now to get it back to where I can work without saying, oh, I can't really do that job that I want to do on the computer until I reinstall some software. Okay, Stan, let's take a break right now before I go on to a different topic totally. Any questions from the audience there about what I went through? And I know some of you, I know Dick Vogel's on the online, and I would imagine, I can't remember who else said that they had installed some of the updates that may be in your audience, but some of you may have already done so. I know Mike's online, Mike Ungerman is online, and he was successful in doing some updates. Is there anyone there who has done the updates and been successful? Anyone that had problems or any questions?
Well, I've got one. And first of all, I'm not sure where I am on this machine. I'll take a look now, and I'll explain what I'm doing. But my question is, how come we spent almost an hour yesterday talking about the sound problems because you thought you were going to be making the presentation from a Chromebook, and I then spent a lot of time trying to find a couple of extra microphones, and I think what happened is I left the box with the extra microphones and speakers. That box didn't make it into the car, so it's just as well, I guess.
Well, the microphones from your end. The problem with the sound is a Chromebook issue, and so I decided this morning, rather than have those issues, I will install some more software and get things ready on my desktop and see if I can make it work. And then I went in and I tested that this morning several times. I had a few issues and went back in, rebooted and rechanged some settings and so on, and finally got it to work.
Okay, well, I think the break is a good idea. I am going to determine where this is, and I'm not exactly sure, but I hit Windows key and D.
Yeah, don't do too much because you may end up breaking us, and I don't want to. I don't want to break the connection. I still want to record. I don't want to take a break, physical break. I just want to, before I change topics, see if there were any questions, any comments from people in the audience.
Okay.
Have you ever used EAS program to move software around?
Stan, can you repeat that?
The question was, have you ever used EAS software to move programs around?
When you say programs and move programs, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but ESUS has backup software. It has some partition software available, much like I used with the disk director from Acronis. So I didn't think I really needed to. If one didn't work, I wasn't going to spend a lot of time with others.
All right. I had an earlier version, and I just got an email that says repair Windows 10 boot, create Windows portable USB and transfer systems to different PCs. And I was just wondering if I should do something like that, because I'm still on Windows 7 and I need to move to Windows 10 on getting a new computer.
Well, I'm not sure. They actually stopped the free update from Windows 7, and I'm not sure. What are you going to try to do? Are you going to try to you're going to purchase Windows 10, or are you going to try one of the ways that it may still be available as an update?
I've got some copies of Windows 10 that I downloaded originally from the freeware with my systems.
I'm not sure if that will work because I'm not sure whether it will register. It was the timing. It wasn't the fact that you couldn't download them after that time. It was the fact that you couldn't get the free update that you would have to pay to get a number. But it's certainly worth trying. I don't know whether you're going to be successful at it. But ESUS, yeah, that ESUS software, and what's the other one for moving to a new computer?
Starts with the P, I think.
I just got an email from them that they just updated their software as well to move software from one computer to the other, and we did that a few years ago, demonstrated it. So there's some software out there. Windows should. The problems I was having.
Magic.
No, not Partition Magic, but was it? I can't think of it now.
Paragon.
Yeah, no. But anyway, not a big deal. The thing is that what I was doing should have worked. And somebody asked in the notes. Let's see. Free John asked, did Microsoft ever tell me why I couldn't install after I wiped the drive? And they said, no, it just worked for them. They didn't do any. I said, what did you do to make it work? And he said, nothing. We had a copy of it here. He used a different copy. So either what I copied needed something to know that it was an upgrade or an update, or there were some errors when I downloaded it and made the USB key. They said they just put it in and ran it and it installed. We had a member that couldn't upgrade and found the upgrade was trying to install on the second drive instead of the primary drive. That's why I did back up. And once he disconnected the second drive, it upgraded easily. And I did see somewheres that was one of the possible fixes was to disconnect your second drive, and it would force it to do it properly on the D drive, on the C drive, on the SSD stick. The problem there being is, if you remember, that's a very small computer, and I am not a hardware person to begin with, and that's not something I would have even begin to try to take that apart. It's not even as easy as a tower, and it's probably worse than a laptop to get in there and futz around with, because you're in such limited space. So I wouldn't have even tried that. The next item, let's see, somebody else on here said, Dave Williams said, my updates went fine. I've gone through the second update they issued to fix the programs. No problem on the NUC and Surface 4. So he has a NUC as well, and he had no problem. There are different versions of NUC, and the different versions of NUC do have different hardware in them. Let's see. The next item, James Martis said, when doing a reinstall of Windows 10, when asked for the license, tell it you don't have one. It will install, and at the end, it will query Microsoft servers to verify your hardware had been previously licensed. If it was, it reactivates it with a fresh install. The only thing I was concerned about, I think it does look at some information. It puts some information on your hardware. It may not, but that was my thought. And because I had wiped everything off the, all of the partitions on that C drive, if it was kept in anything in that recovery drive or the recovery partition, it couldn't find it, and I was just afraid that might be an issue. So, but yeah, that's a good point, James. And let's see. And Mike Ungerman says, when I use the ESUS partition manager to join non-contiguous partitions, I had to boot from their recovery disk and not run it from Windows. Okay. So there was so much involved there that I just, and I was getting in over my head, and some of it was, I was guessing, and when I got to the point that I was guessing too much, that's when I started really getting nervous. And when I wiped all the partitions, I said, there might be some things that I can do, but I don't know quite what I'm supposed to. It may be a very simple fix, but it's time to go to an expert somewhere. Any other questions there in Castleberry?
Well, when you mentioned break, is there going to be time for a quick pit stop?
No, I would like to finish up, and then you guys can do it between meetings.
Okay.
So I am going to go back to my meeting notes, and this gets to the next question. Windows 10 laptop or a Chromebook? Which should you buy? At this point, unless you really need it, I'm recommending a Chromebook. This is a good article. The case for the Chromebook. There are several things I think there's down here, and read through this article if you would. I thought there was a comparison chart. Must have been a different article I read, but it boils down that if the Android apps and the Chromebook is enough for you, and you don't have to do, you're not playing heavy games. If you're just playing a few card games, they don't matter. But there's a lot of PC games that require actually much more powerful hardware than any business or video software that you have, or video hardware that you have. So if you're doing a lot of gaming, if you're doing video editing, you're doing a lot of photography editing. When I say editing, I'm talking about Photoshop, not just cropping and a couple of pictures together, but doing some serious photo work. Those don't do well on a Chromebook. Video, definitely. You can do some, but again, it's not much. And my Chromebook's an 11-inch Chromebook, and my desktop is a 24-inch touchscreen monitor. So just think of working with an 11-inch and then working with a 24-inch each touchscreen. It's a big difference when you're doing work, and you can open more windows, have more things open at one time. So if you're doing a lot of involved work, then the Chromebook may not be for you, but in many cases, Chromebook is more than enough and should be fine. Let's see. Just looking at some notes here. Mike says Chromebook. Dick Vogel says PC if you have the software that only runs on Windows. That's true, but a lot of the software that only runs on Windows, there's something similar to it, either that's Android or runs on a website. There's a lot of photo editing programs that you can actually edit the pictures on the web. You upload the picture, and then you do the editing there, and you download the result. And then Mike also said, I was surprised to see that the Zoom conferencing system had a Chrome app, so he could attend the meeting with it. But he still hasn't found a successful replacement for Quicken, though. So he's got to use his PC for Quicken. And I'm using, I've got the Chromebook next to me, so I can see what's on the screen while I'm doing this. I always like to, sometimes I use my iPad, and I used to use the Microsoft Windows laptop I had before it went south. But I like to have a second screen open here when I'm doing these presentations and when I'm doing the SIG, so I can see what you're saying. So if we get disconnected, I don't just go on and not realize you're not there or you don't see me. Okay, so the next item on here is how to use the Windows Update Troubleshooter. And I had mentioned the Troubleshooter, but this is a good article on how to use it. To get this bigger. And then the article does say on which version did you get the error, Windows 10, 8.1, or 7. So you can use that troubleshooter even on Windows 7. There is one there, and it tells you how to run it by clicking on which version. So it's different in Windows 10, 8.1, or 7 and how you run it. And then the article talks about you select the operating system. Windows 10 users be asked to download the Windows Update Troubleshooter and run it. The other versions also have their own troubleshooters. And that's it. So it's a short article, but it is, if you are having some problems, you might want to take a look at that. And then to totally get away from the updates and the upgrades, I included three other articles that I thought were good. You may be familiar with portable apps. And portable apps have been around a long time. And that's where you can actually download a whole series of apps and put them on a thumb drive. and launch and run them from that thumb drive without any problems. They're portable. You don't have to install them. But what Portable Apps has done now is they have something called Platform 15, and it's for managing the apps. And so you can actually have like a menu program with all of the apps, and it looks like this. And so you might want to see what apps are available as portable, and then create a USB stick to carry that around with you. So many times if you're going to work on somebody else's computer and they don't have a program that you need to do some work that you can run, you don't have to install and use their computer and have to save things and your sign-ins and so on their computer. You're doing it all from the thumb drive.
Huey,
Yes.
I'm seeing that the torrent is on there. And that's interesting because one of the things that smart guys told me about this computer was that torrent was still on the machine. I thought I had used it for something, and I thought I had taken it off, and it was still on there. I didn't see it running, but he said that was a major part of the issue. So I'm wondering if you did run it from a thumb like that, if you did want to download something. And there are some things that that's the best place to get them. Whether that would have avoided getting onto your machine and slowing everything down.
I would imagine so, because you're not running it, you're not installing it at all. You're running it totally from the USB drive.
I'll have to give that a try.
The next article, before I get to that, let's do the last one next. As some of you may know, I've cut the cord. I no longer have cable TV, and yet I'm watching all the cable TV programs that I watched before, most of them. And I've done it by, why is that? Oops. Let's come back here. Well, there must be a way out of this picture. I don't know how to do it. That's the article. Well, I'm going to close that and come back to the article. It's an easy way to do it. I had Spectrum come and uninstall, well, not uninstall, actually they didn't even come. I fired them. And it said, I no longer want your services. They jumped me up close to $50 a month, and then they were going to give me some specials, and I'd only increase about $15 a month, but it was going to take me up to about $200 a month for 2 TVs. And I said, no, that's more than I want, and I've got a lot of the things that I want, and you're not going to let me have them. So, so what I did is I brought in Frontier, which has FiOS, and all I have is internet. The only thing I get from internet, they gave me a special $40 a year, 150 megabits per second up and down, and with no limits. And so I've got internet, high-speed internet access for $40 a month for a year. After that, their regular rate is $80 a month, but at that point, after a year, I can either go back to Spectrum and say, okay, what kind of special will you give me just for internet? Or I will talk to Frontier and see if they'll continue to give me some kind of a special for the internet. And then what I've done is I've gone out and you'll see in this article, I'm not sure how to get rid of that picture on there. I guess it's because
Far right side. Next.
No.
The picture. Keep going right.
No, I don't have. It's just I don't have anything that tells me how to get rid of it. So anyway, pick a live TV streaming service. There's a lot of them out there. They all are different priced, And what I did is each one of them gives you a 7-day or a 1-week free test period. And so I said, I looked at them and looked, there's several articles out there that compare them, what channels each one has on them, at what price, and so on. And I kind of determined that most likely the AT&T's DirecTV Now, it's DirecTV Now, not DirecTV. DirecTV is still satellite, but DirecTV Now is a streaming service that AT&T has. And I kind of determined that that's probably the one I'm going to end up with. So I said, I'm going to leave that one to last. So I went and I looked at Hulu. I looked at Sling TV. And I tried, when I say looked at, I signed up for a 7-day free trial period. And I also, I did one, spent about a week on it, shut it off, so they wouldn't charge me, and then started the next one. So I started with Hulu, then Sling TV, and then YouTube TV. It's called YouTube TV, and none of them, I really didn't like the interface with most of them. Some had DVRs, some didn't, and but the DirecTV Now had the channels that both I wanted and Robin wanted. So, and it's about 100 channels for $35 a month. And it does need something like a Roku box, but I've got a Roku box on both TVs anyway. So you got to have something for them to come in with, and again, you need to look at that. There's the Apple TV, there's the Amazon TV stick, there's the Chromebook, not Chromebook, but the Chrome stick, and then there's the Microsoft One Box, which is their gaming machine, and so on. That some of these work on. So you got to look at the equipment that you're going to run it on first, as well, to make sure it's going to work on that particular hardware.
Two questions, Hewie.
Sure.
Do you still have any DVR capability?
No, I have none.
Didn't you get a lifetime service for, I've forgotten the name of,
I had a TiVo about 10 years ago.
You don't have a TiVo?
No, I haven't had one in probably 7-8 years.
I see. Well, I know Glenn Cofield has somehow figured out a way to build his own recording service. But the other question I have, do you still have that other box that you bought like at a flea market or something?
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game, and I really don't want to get into that at this part of the conversation. But I can, if you want, before I get off of here. But what I have found with DirecTV Now, and most of them, they do have what's it called? It's on demand, an on demand type of thing. You can go back in and say, okay, I want to look at all of the ABC. I want to look at ABC TV, ABC TV network. So you go into the networks and you look at ABC, and it'll have all the major programs that ABC has. When you click on it, you'll see it's season 1, season 2.
Wow.
And a lot of them have the programs, and they may not have the most recent one until 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, or a week after, or it might even be a little bit longer in some cases. But I've been able to watch almost all of the TV programs I wanted. And then I bought another one of those boxes that definitely takes care of my needs. But I'll talk about that as well. But I have been able to, and I also had Netflix, and I actually shut off Netflix. I really don't need it now. And so I'm very happy with DirecTV Now and with the FiOS. And during this year that I have the special rate, I now have TV on TV channels going to 2 TVs streaming, and it runs me less than $100 a month.
2 more questions. The Frontier, is that a national firm? I've never heard of that. Are they available here in Orlando, for example?
It was Verizon here locally, and Frontier bought them. And I don't know if there's anybody that's got FiOS there or not. The FiOS is the fiberglass.
Yeah.
Right, pretty much the house. So I can get up to 500 megabits with them if I want to pay that much for it. If I want to pay what they require. So they have 100. They have 100, 150, I think 300 and 500. But I think Spectrum has up to a gigabit. You're going to pay for it.
CenturyLink that I have with fiber optics has just decided that since I don't have a contract, you had to sign up for 2 years, but I think they're considering dropping it because it's too expensive to maintain. So they've raised their rates quite a bit for me, and I'm in a hassle with them. But doesn't Amazon Prime, which I know you and a number of other people have to get the free shipping, doesn't that have a streaming service as well?
Right, and I'm able to get that through my Roku. Yes, and Roku has a lot of channels that you can get free or you can subscribe to, depending upon what your desires and needs are. There's a lot. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of channels available for the Roku and for the other, the Apple TV and the Amazon's got a stick. Of course, they have their Amazon service on that stick, and then Chrome has their stick and some things on it as well. So yeah, there's a lot of those available. And let's see. I'm seeing if there's anything else here that I wanted to cover. So you pick your device. I'm using the Roku streaming player. Been very happy. I've got some neighbors that have gone to strictly an outside antenna. We're about 30 miles south of Tampa. So the Tampa stations, just by sticking something on the window, don't come in that well, if at all. And so if you want an outside antenna, if you want an antenna to get those, you have to get an outside antenna, but they don't have to go very high. They've got it on the edge of their single-story house, and they're able to get channels up and down the west coast of Florida, so they get all of the Tampa St. Pete area and so on. But now with the DirecTV, the ABC stations, I get Channel 9 from Orlando, I can't remember what the ABC number is in Tampa, and the ABC channel in Sarasota. So through DirecTV, I get those 3 from ABC. I get the Fox channel out of Orlando and the Fox channel out of Tampa. I get the CBS station from Tampa, and I get the NBC station out of Orlando. All part of the DirecTV Now, so it's all through my Roku. So I'm not getting it out through the air, but they do now. Most of these services are getting some local TV for you.
And is that related to the DirecTV around here, for example, which they say rain doesn't affect it, but
No. DirecTV and DirecTV Now are entirely separate. They're both owned. They're both owned by AT&T. But DirecTV is satellite. DirecTV Now is streaming through the internet. So there are differences. So you'd have to look for DirecTV TV now to understand what they have. They have a couple of different levels. I get the lower of the two levels that I'm paying $35 a month. It's my understanding that they have in beta, from articles I've read online, they do have a DVR in beta, but they've had some issues with it, so they haven't released it yet. But there will be some DVR capabilities through them. But it's and it'll probably give you 20 hours, and if you want more, you pay for it. And you may have to pay for the 20 hours. I don't know yet, because it's, as I say, it's still in beta. Okay. Now, you mentioned about those boxes. I'd like to wait until after the recording, because I don't really want to talk about that on the recording. So let's just take a look at the final item. The 2018 Beginner Guide to Cord Cutting is the one we had. Oh, the 20 incredibly useful websites if you wish you knew earlier. A website worth taking a look at. You may find some websites on there that you like. And thought I clicked on it, but there we go. And let me make it larger. This is from Kim Commando. If you're not familiar with her, she's got some radio shows, a radio show on the weekends on different stations at different times. Excellent. And she's been around a long time. She also writes in USA Today. She's got a column, and she does some other things as well. But print web pages minus the clutter. And the second one down is send a fax straight from your computer. I know a lot of people have talked to me about doing that, and I always tell them you can't. Apparently there's a website that you can go to and do that, and this article will tell you about it. So on that point, I'm going to, unless there's any comments or questions, I want to end the recording, and then I do want to talk about that other item, and then I'll turn it back over to the group. So, and when I stop the recording, those online are welcome to stay during that discussion as well. Okay. Free John is saying he's running Zoom on Linux Mint. And so Zoom is the program we're using to do this presentation with. And so he joined the meeting using Linux Mint. Okay.
Is Free John anyone that we know?
Yeah, he did a presentation for John Kennedy from East Central Ohio. I think it's East Central, okay. Some part of Ohio. Anyway, and he did a presentation to CFCS when I was still living there, and we did it through the internet. So yes, you do know him only that way. And unless there's some questions on that end, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So I want to bring.
Anybody else got any questions on this part? I think we're okay then, Hewie.
Okay, let me stop the recording.